Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Kappa Pi Artist Spotlight, where we celebrate creativity, passion, and the incredible talent within our artistic community. I'm Stephanie, and today in this episode, we're talking with Stella Arbolias Tascon. She is a talented artist and professor here at UCF, and today she is sharing her work with us today. We'll dive into the stories behind her pieces and what drives her creative journey. So sit back, get inspired, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to see more artists here featured right here on the Kappa Pi channel. Let's get into it.
Hello.
Hello. Okay. What inspired you to become an artist?
Um, Honestly, I don't think I had a choice. Life just took me that way. I never considered anything else. I have, since very young, been doing just things with my hands, drawing, painting, clay sculpting, anything that I could get my hands to that was creative. So when my mother and I and my little sister, we moved to New York in 1984, and my professor, no, not my professor, my teacher at the local junior high school in Queens noticed that I had an artistic ability, and she routed me to apply to the schools, specialized art schools in the city, in New York City. So, which was LaGuardia Music and Art and Visual Arts, the High School of Visual Arts, and so the High School of Art and Design, I think it was. So I made it into LaGuardia, and after that, there was just no other way. I just could not think of doing anything else. So because I have a very early training, a specialized, highly specialized training, right, at the High School of Music and Art, everything was art. We had 3 hours of studio concentration classes from the very start. I was very fortunate. And honestly, when it came time to apply for college, there was just no other way. I didn't see myself going for anything else but art. So I was thrilled when FIT accepted me, the Fashion Institute of Technology, and then I took off from there.
Hmm. Who and what are your biggest influences?
Okay. Biggest influences, gosh, there are so many. And I think that if you look at my work, you'll see I have quite a wide range, um, from, Leyendecker to Raphael, honestly. I think it depends. There are different people that influence you, right? In my life, I would say my mother and my daughter, and in my personal life, for sure. And in artistically, for sure, I would say Raphael and Louise Bourgeois, just just to skim the surface.
Nice. Can you walk us through your entire woodblock print process from start to finish?
Yeah, playing in the forest of life was my is my biggest woodblock print up to now. It's made of 6 panels that are 24 inches by 48, and then there's a panel that kind of is in the bottom for timepieces, for time clocks. So I basically started with a little tiny sketch. It was like 2 by 2 sketch of a figure sitting alone with the hair. One of my physical characteristics is my hair. I have really long hair, goes down to my bottom. And so I had this figure with a hair coming up in turning into a tree. And then Larry Cooper, I was at the time assisting Larry Cooper. I was a graduate student. And he said, I would love to see that as a triptych. I'm like, okay. So sure enough, I worked out the design, and I I was really surprised at how easy it went. It just kind of it evolved very naturally. I I did my quick sketch on ratio for the entire composition. And then I took each run. I call a run basically each panel, the long panel that consists of two 48 by 24 and one 12 by 40 by 24 piece. And so I had enough of an idea to know what I wanted in each of them. The first one was the one where it's a self-portrait. The whole thing is an allegorical self-portrait, but where I am older now and grasping a magnolia flower. That was the first panel where my hair becomes a tree. And I basically enlarged my thumbnail with a grid because I had done it on scale. And then I painted um, the panel with the gessoed panel, I must say. Painted it with acrylic, just a very, very light coat of red acrylic. And then I started to go with the Sharpie. Actually, it was the Sharpie first. So first is the Sharpie drawing. And yeah, then I just started to carve after the acrylic was on, started to take out the negative space. So then after I started to print, and that was basically what I had, what the same system that I used for each of the panels. The tree itself, on the other side, right, with the life-giving tree female form, that one was a little bit more detail, and so I didn't have such a determined thumbnail. I wanted to enjoy more of the process, and that was mostly it. I had where the figures lay, but everything else was almost ad lib as I went. It was not such a small detail in the thumbnail. Uh, I like I like that process because it allows me for spontaneity, and it allows me to change things. It allows me the element of surprise, which I think is really important when working large. Otherwise, if I found that if I have everything super planned out, I get bored. And so then I have to drag my feet to finish something. But with this one, that was not the case. I Because I had given myself enough wiggle room to play around with compositional elements within already an established parameter. So in the tree, I do have a family of mockingbirds, northern mockingbirds, which are the state birds of Florida and Texas, and current state birds of Florida and Texas. And yeah, these I took these birds as representation of myself and my former husband since we made a home together. Um, and the birds are tending to their nest. So I feel the whole allegory is a reflection on the stages of my life, what I have been through. And, after going through a very rough, emotionally draining divorce, this was kind of my reconciliation piece where I became now grateful for having experienced this event in my life, the having been married and having raised a family, and so I wanted to celebrate that, and that's what this is about. The piece itself, the print is currently in three different stages. It has three different panels. And so I have one that is printed in fabric. The middle panel is printed with fabric, linen, in fact, and it's an artist proof. Then I have an artist proof of the third panel with the life-giving tree in on Japanese paper, and then I have the panel where I am grasping the flowers um, on newsprint. So there are different stages of experimentation for the printing process. And yeah, I'm very excited because at this moment I found a print shop here in Eustis in Lake County where I live, and I can continue with my printing of my mammoth, my mammoth work. So yeah, it's still in the process as far as I'm concerned because I only have one finished print. The size of it was it's it was quite large, and so it's quite large. So I'm now preparing to have the woodblocks shown at a printmaker show at Stetson University in January, which I'm really excited about. And that's where I'm at with that print from start to finish. Did that answer your question?
Yes, that was wonderful.
Great, thank you.
What inspired you to create artwork centered around mile markers?
Okay. So as I mentioned, my divorce really did a number on me. It was so upsetting. And now I can laugh, thank God, right? But yeah, it left me with a depressive state of mind. And I'm not talking 1 or 2 months, I'm talking deep depression where I wouldn't leave my room, I wouldn't leave my house. Um, and I became addicted to social media and all these horrible things that I knew were harmful for me. So one day I got tired. I'm like, oh, I'm so tired of this. I'm tired of myself. And I just rented a kayak and in a park nearby, Griffin Park, I think it's called. And I was just in love, fell in love with nature here in Florida. I had been a recent transplant. We had just moved from New Jersey to Florida when the divorce happened. So I fell in love with the experience of being outdoors and started to seek out opportunities to be outdoors. So I had been a Girl Scout leader for my daughter all through her life and all of that. And I've always wanted to do backpack hiking, right? To just get a backpack and go. And I found this group in Orlando where they were doing a 3 or 4 day trip to Appalachian Trail. And I'm like, okay, I'm going. It was a 37-mile hike. And I went on my 40th birthday. It was my way of celebrating my 40th birthday. So um, I was really surprised that my legs didn't fall off. Like it was so extremely painful. But from that point on, I started to hike every opportunity I could while working as a substitute teacher in the school system. And I found that everything changed for me. And at one point, I decided, okay, I had around 400 miles under my feet when I decided to tackle the Florida National Scenic Trail. It is a footpath and a national scenic trail that was founded, I think, in the 1960s. And I just wanted to do something really big and very hard. That whole time from the point when I became divorced to the beginning of the trail, I had promised myself I really wanted to apply to an MFA program. And I had all the schools planned out and I had everything ready, but I was too afraid. I did not think I could because I hadn't done anything hard since after my divorce, like really hard. And I needed to build my confidence again. So I went on this hike. It's 1,180 miles from the Everglades to the Panhandle. And in doing so, it took me 3 months. I backpacked it. And in doing so, I met wonderful people, amazing people. And I walked a lot in silence, which helped me deal with my ruminating thoughts, right, of failure or discontent or fear. And when I finished it, I felt so empowered. And I thought, okay, if I can do this, which is the reason why I started it, I thought if I can finish this trail, I can do anything. And then I'll be prepared to apply to an MFA program. And I did, and I finished it. And sure enough, I applied and I got in. So the Florida Trail is an extremely personal path for me. It's a mental path and a physical representation of my becoming a new version of me. I think we all need that, right? We all need that at one point or another in our lives. So the mile markers, when I entered the MFA program at UCF, I thought my entire body of work was going to be large paintings of the Florida landscape based on photographs, hundreds of photographs I had taken during my walk. And what I realized is that soon after I realized that I became more involved in the research of my psychological stages, what I experienced both in my mind and in my body. So the mile markers, the small print became, I wanted to depict them as the memory. I wanted to record the history of the physical history of the landscape, as well as where I have been in that trail, and my mental state. But specifically for these mile markers, that's what it is. It's a physical representation of a path that I took and transformed my life. And so, because it is in Florida, the way that I exhibit it here, like you have them, I decided to use grass paper, which I made by collecting literally grass from the side of the road, and made this grass paper, which turned out to have a beautiful variety of uh, greens. And I leaned into that and made a map out of wood, out of, just a cutout, a map of Florida. And then each of the different colors of the paper actually represents a different indigenous group that used to take care of this land. So the trail as you see it in the image is a representation not only of my my physical trek, but also it's honoring the indigenous people that um, really are the stewards of the land. And I find that after having walked the trail, I've had this affinity for indigenous people and their plight and their environmental concerns, very much so, very much so. So it's an honoring of the indigenous people that used to take care of that, still stewards of the land, those who are still there. And the path itself, I wanted a physical representation because it's sometimes hard to understand how long that is, 1,100 miles, until you have it on a map in front of you. And so that's those little prints that you see there are copper etchings that are placed near the locations where the photo references were taken, and hopefully convey a mood of memory and small treasures that I experienced in this hike.
Nice. What inspired you to create an artwork that shifts from gray to vibrant colors?
This is something that I had done in my first graduate piece called "To My Own Self, I Am True." Color really helps me state my state of mind, and I'm a traditionalist as far as techniques go and drawing and painting. So it's a very comfortable way for me to work. And so this particular piece, the materials that I use really are significant to every work that I make. So is for, you know, And people tell me, well, so are you a painter? Are you a drawing artist? Are you a sculptor or installation artist? I'm like, I am whatever the work demands. And this particular work really demanded some somberness. And I wanted to show the feeling of war. This work is based on a conversation I had with my former husband on the phone, like one of the very first conversations I had after almost a decade of divorce, of being divorced. And he just did not sound friendly towards me. And we were not talking about anything heavy at all. We were just talking niceties, right? And he was short tempered and very harsh towards me. His voice, I could hear it. And so I wanted to disassociate myself with that feeling of, ugh, the heaviness, the drama, the demanding emotional toll that just just his voice brought back to me, especially in that tone. So at the time, the war in Gaza had just started, and so that's why I wanted to convey the destruction, and black, really, the monochromatic scale is really the best one to use. And that's what it went from there. And again, I wanted that physical. This work is a physical representation of my mental disassociation with the trauma that it was to hear his voice be so harsh towards me. I said, nope, I'm not going to let that affect me. I live in a fantastic, beautiful place. So I wanted to have that river between us, a physical barrier. And then the landscape that you see in the very background, in the very first and second panels, is specifically the background of the landscape that I observe at St. Mark's Preserve in the um, over in the Panhandle, kind of in the northern part of the state in the Florida Trail. It was just magical, magical. And so the more that, if you notice, the work goes from very representational space to a more abstract and more ephemeral place, because it goes from my physical being to my state of mind, and how through the Florida landscape and through my experiences, artistic experiences and expression, I just liberate myself from the weightiness of that conversation, and in fact of that chapter in my life that was very unfortunate. So that's again the shift in color. It's very intentional, and it represents a specific state of mind.
How does this piece connect to your larger body of work or artistic identity?
All right. So this particular piece, it's funny because this was the last one, pretty much, the last 2D work I did as a graduate student, which is pastel and charcoal. And it coincidentally connects with the very first one I made in the program, which was an 8 foot by 8 foot drawing of a multi-figure me. It's a composition that has 3 or 4 figures of myself, also where I play with charcoal in the memory stage of the composition, where the mind space is depicted in a monochromatic scale. And then the reality, my current reality, is depicted with color. And so in this one, I do the same, but then I now change it to where the physical representation and monochromatic scale represent where I have been, and the color and the mark making of the last one represent where I am now. And I think that's what my body of work is all about. It's all about transformation and juxtapositions. Um, going through the program at UCF really allowed me to dig in and realize that unless it's moving, I'm not I'm not into it. Unless it shows some kind of transformation or a story or a juxtaposition, um, it doesn't really entice me, right? And that may have to do with the type of artist that I was earlier before I got married. I used to be in animation, and so for me, movement and storytelling have a lot to do with my work. And so I think that overall, that's how this work connects me with my larger body of work. It tells a story or a transformation, and it gives us a visual of a point of beginning and a point of current affairs and a path, again, almost like that trail, right? um, yeah, so in the trail community, there's a saying that goes, the trail will provide. And I think that's what this work did for me. It provided a way for me to transform myself or to represent how I felt. And overall, that's what my work is about. Represent represent It represents changes.
Wonderful. What's your biggest tip for staying inspired?
Okay, the biggest tip, honestly, I see stay connected to the artistic community. I have been disconnected in my life. I have had extended periods of disconnection from artists, from people who think like me, and people who understand the struggles, right? And who understand the striving for excellence. I think overall, stay connected with people who strive for excellence, artistic excellence, um, or for like you said, I'm currently working as a professor both at Valencia and UCF. And I find that being around art students that are committed to improving themselves and to excel, right? It's that push, that drive from, the very beginning student to another artist, a co-worker in the professorate, or a visual artist who is always striving. That's that's what gets me going. That's what gets me, okay, let's do this, because there's community there, even if it's not physically close to you. That community provides not only inspiration but also support and a type of camaraderie that you cannot find anywhere else. So I think that would be it. And then, of course, um, giving yourself enough time and space to be outdoors or to experience quiet spaces in nature. I think that's really important too.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode of Kappa Pi Artist Spotlight. We hope you enjoyed getting to know Stella Arbayas Tascon and her creative journey. Want to see more amazing student artists and upcoming events and behind the scenes content? Scan the QR code on the screen to follow us on all our social media platforms. Stay connected, stay inspired, and support the arts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Bye bye.
Thank you.